Hey everyone, welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to do an unboxing and a first look at the welder I have in this box here. It was sent to me by Simder. They contacted me last week and asked if I'd like to take a look at one of these. And after seeing the pictures and some specs on it, I thought it'd be a great fit for this channel and some of the other welding topics we've covered already. So let's get this thing opened up and take a look and see what it comes with. Today we're going to take a look at the Simder MIG 140. So this little machine here weighs in at about 11 pounds without a spool of wire. Obviously it's very small, about half the size of a titanium 125 from Harbor Freight. It does flux core, wire fed, as well as stick welding, all in this nice little compact package. It's an all metal housing and does have plastic hinges and a plastic handle. Take a look at those here in a second. But overall, this may be just the ticket for your home welder or garage hobbyist that wants to do both, needs both, or isn't sure which style welding is going to suit their project the best. And it comes in at a really affordable price point. However, there are a few drawbacks to this machine which we'll go over. Nothing that would keep me from buying it. There are just a few things about it that are not as polished as they could be. For example, there's no chart in the door to give you any information as far as settings and starting points go. The manual doesn't really cover these dials up here very well. This one I found out through trial and error does change wire feed speed when you're using flux wire. The voltage one, I don't know that it actually changes anything because there are two different settings for two different wire sizes that you change independently from the voltage. So I don't really know what's going on with those. However, after a little fumbling around, I've got it welding pretty good. Stick welding is definitely straightforward. Amperage knob is all you need there. And you can switch these out. These are both standard connectors. So you can do electrode positive or negative. It is a very loud machine. The fan in here is super loud, which is good because it's going to cool the machine just fine. It's just I was not expecting this little box to be as loud as it is with just the fan running. And it runs all the time. This machine's also 110 or 220. So to use it at the maximum of 140 amps, you are more than likely going to have to plug this thing into a 220 outlet. It does come with that adapter in the box. But overall, this is a nice little machine for someone just starting out, or if you need something that's super portable, this is it. Now, one thing to remember, and it's something that I wish they would have done differently, is that they call this a MIG 140. However, this does not have any sort of gas ports or gas setup, so it cannot do true MIG. It is a flux core wire fed only machine. There is no way to run gas on this machine, and I wish that the name didn't kind of imply that it did. However, that doesn't take away from the machine itself and its capabilities as far as what it was designed to do. It's just a little bit misleading calling something like this a MIG 140. Like the titanium is called a Flux 125. You know right off the bat it is meant to do flux core, and that is it. So they should have done something along those lines with this. So it comes with your flux wire lead, metal nozzles, comes with your ground clamp, which looks to be of reasonable quality for an import welder. Then you've got your electrode holder, and it looks okay. It is a little stiff and it does flex a little bit, so that might become an issue, but this machine does have standard connectors, so if you do need to replace this down the road, it's not that big of a deal. And then it comes with an adapter because this is 110 or 220. And then you do get a few extra tips and an extra nozzle along with the instructions in a bag there. And then it does come with one spool of wire. Which would be 0.035. This machine will do 0.030 and 0.035 flux core wire. All right, so on this side, you've got your door for your wire spool that would go here. Obviously your wire feed mechanism. Looks pretty standard. And then this is your feed wheel in here does have the two different groove sizes, so you pull it out and flip it if you're changing wire size, which is pretty standard on these machines. And that's it, you're ready to go to a different size. But I'm going to use the wire they sent for the first couple welds just to see if it's any good. And if we need to, I'll switch it to something else. You do have instructions here on the top on how to load your wire. Now, one thing to note is that there is no chart in here for any sort of setting, so you'll have to look that up online if that's something that you need. But there is no chart on the inside of the door like there is on a lot of the other welders that give you at least a starting point. One nice thing to see is that there is a fan here in the back. Your on-off switch is back here, and that's all that's on the back. And this is an all-metal housing, so the top, the sides, this divider in the middle, and even this front panel are all metal, and it looks like it's powder coated. And it actually feels pretty nice and looks pretty sturdy. The latch is plastic, and then the hinges are both plastic, but they do look like for the weight of this door, they should hold up fine. And then you do get a carry handle on the top. This does not come with a strap like some of the other welders do, and honestly, with it being as small as it is, I don't think that's necessary. And in fact, on a lot of the other welders, I end up throwing mine away just because they get in the way. Then moving on to the front here, you've got a digital display on this one. Now this one is labeled as voltage for the wire feed. This one's labeled as amperage. And then here you've got an indicator if you're in arc welding or stick welding mode. And then interestingly, it does have a selection for your 0.8, which is your 0.030, and your 1 millimeter, which is your 0.035 wire. Now, one thing I didn't see, I just looked through the manual off camera because this is the first time I'm seeing this welder in person as well, is that I don't see any sort of wire feed speed setting. It does address both of these knobs in the directions for wire fed, but it just keeps referring them to voltage and amperage every time they're mentioned. So I may need to play with that and see what that is about. It's going to be kind of unfortunate if there isn't a wire feed speed on this and it's just preset, because it means you're going to have to change your welding style to fit this machine versus getting the settings set up how you like them. But all that's left for us to do now is to turn it on and get some welds going. So I'm going to shut off the camera, I'll get wire loaded in here, and we will start with the wire fed flux and go from there. All right, so I got this loaded up, the machine's on. Nothing too crazy happened loading it up. The only thing I wish is that this knob here was a little bit bigger and possibly even more round to cover more of this washer. When you're trying to screw this on with the spring behind here, you can get this kind of off and everything will come flying back out. But other than that, everything inside went smoothly. Wire feeds through this little spring here and then goes to the rollers, and then it fed through the lead just fine. Just to note, the fan on this thing is super loud. It does move a lot of air. You can feel the air coming in and out of this thing, but I haven't even used this yet and it's already blowing this loud. And I did find out that this knob here for the amperage actually does control the wire feed speed up and down. So as you get higher and this number changes to a higher number, you do get a faster speed. Now the weird part is that this knob for voltage over here doesn't change anything on the screen, so I don't know if you're just supposed to kind of do the 1 through 10 thing like the Harbor Freight welders do. Like the titanium I've got, it's kind of set up that way. It'd be nice to be able to see what voltage you're at on the screen here, because that would get you a little bit better repeatability for settings in different situations. But I am glad to see that you can change the wire feed speed. Now what I still don't understand is why you have to pick between the 8.8 and 1 millimeter settings for the wire size. It obviously has to change something within the machine itself. I just don't know what that is, and the instructions really don't cover that. Alright, so as you saw, this end was too hot. I was melting the steel away. The top was the first bit that I did here, and I don't know what that's going to look like. But by the time I got to this inside, and then this bottom, after I turned the speed down a little bit, it definitely did improve. Does anyone else have like a bunch of these brushes because the dog grabs them off your welding table and takes them out in the yard and chews them apart? Because I do. So yeah, the top kind of melted and has a little porosity going on. This end definitely melted, but this inside is still a little warm. This here, and then this bottom here isn't too bad. And this bottom piece here, I did not prep this bottom. I only prepped this top section here. So for not being prepped, that's actually not bad. And this is the wire that comes with this welder. I'm sure if I slap some better wire in there, it'd look a little bit nicer. So you can see this side here isn't horrible. I mean, it's pretty solid. And so is this side here. Up top's not too bad. I didn't put an angle or a bevel on this, so it did build up a little bit. And the bottom's not bad either. Now, it definitely could be a lot better. Like I said, brand new machine to me, and I'm using whatever wire they send, so I don't know what quality that is. But overall, it's not giving a bad weld for just taking it out of the box and giving it its first go. So next up, I'm gonna get it set up to stick weld. I do have a couple boxes. I gotta see what I've got. I don't stick weld that often, so these welds are probably gonna be pretty awful. I'm gonna make them short, and they definitely probably would need to be ground if they were on something I was making. All right, so what I've got here is just some Harbor Freight Vulcan 6013 and 3/32. I'm just gonna run a couple beads on this piece of angle. I'm not gonna weld anything together, but I just wanna run a couple beads, see how it does. All right, guys, so there is some stick welds. Like I said, I'm not good at stick welding by any means. It's one of those things that when I have to, I get it done good enough and move on. So this was the first one I did, and then I did this outer one, and then I came back here and did these couple. This outer one actually isn't horrible, but these in here could use a little work. That's something I need to practice more so I do get better at it. Alright, so overall I don't think this Simder welder is bad at all by any means. It's definitely a capable little machine. I can't get over the fact how small it is. I mean, this is half the size of my Harbor Freight Titanium 125. And it weighs maybe 10, 11 pounds. I think they advertise it at 11 pounds, and that's without the spool, of course. So add 2 pounds for the spool of wire if you're using it that way. So 13 pounds carry handle. I mean, it's a nice compact setup that can do flux and stick welding, which is something that's hard to find. This retails right now on Amazon for $158, and I think they've got an $8 coupon, so that brings it down to $150 even. And it's hard to beat that in a 140 amp machine that's 110 or 220 that can stick weld and do flux core. So that makes this a pretty good option for somebody looking to get started, isn't sure which process they want to do, which one's going to be the best for them. Also a nice compact package for taking to a job site or out into the yard or on a farm. I mean, you can't beat how small this is. Seems to take standard consumables up at the tip. When I took this apart to feed the wire through, I did try one of the 40 tips that I've got in my stuff, and it fit just fine. I don't have another welder that has metal nozzles because the titanium uses those plastic ones. So I don't know if this is a standard consumable. It just pulls on and off with like a little spring underneath here. So I'm assuming that is standard. However, I don't have something here to compare it to, and I've never really looked, to be entirely honest. But it feels nice. It's just a plastic handle, but it is sturdy and well made, it seems. The only real gripe I've got is that this electrode holder has such a high spring pressure on the jaws. You can actually feel this plastic body flex when you try to get it open. Depending on your strength, you may have to use 2 hands to open this thing. That's how tight and how much spring pressure there is. And I just would be concerned over time of having it break down here from trying to open and close it. Now with time it may loosen up and get a little bit softer. And then the only other thing really is that this ground clamp, as with a lot of these import machines, has a very short lead on it. So you've got to have the machine pretty close to your work. But it is about on par with some of the Harbor Freight stuff and the other import welders that are available on Amazon. But yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with this. I would recommend this to somebody who wants to sit down and is willing to sit down and take the time to figure out where the settings need to be, since you don't really have any sort of guide. I think one big improvement Simder could make on this would be just in the instructions and what these knobs do, and conveying that more clearly in the manual or putting out their own video online, something of that nature, so that someone who gets this has somewhere to go to figure out at least starting points for what they're trying to do. I mean, it's literally guess and check at this point, because your wire feed speed for the flux core function changes up here, but it doesn't give you any sort of voltage. And it's just numbers, so it doesn't really mean anything either. Wire speed 20 doesn't mean anything to me compared to wire speed 25 until you're using the machine and kind of mess with it and figure it out. And then the voltage, you're just kind of left in the dark, hoping that you're somewhere in the ballpark. And then, like I said, I don't know what the 2 different functions for the different wire sizes actually do inside in the electronics of the machine. It's got to change something, or else it wouldn't be an option, but it doesn't say what that does. As far as stick welding goes, it's pretty straightforward. You put your stinger on, put your ground on, make sure you're in arc welding mode up here, and that's just this button cycles you through. This red button cycles through the modes. Arc welding mode is set, and then this knob here changes your amperage, and that's it. I mean, it's as simple as a stick welder can be, and as simple as most of them are. It's just amperage control, and that is it, which is fine. Yeah, overall, not a bad little machine. So if you're starting out, want something that can do both flux core and stick welding without having to step up to a multi-process machine and spend that kind of money, I would definitely check it out. I'll put the link in the description below to Amazon. And if you have any questions or want any specific shots or information about this, leave it in the comments below and I will see what I can find out for you, or take a look at this one. I've also gone ahead and set up a Patreon for the channel, so the link for that will be in the description as well. There's going to be some pretty neat stuff coming through there in the future as we get more people who are Patreons. I plan on I've moved the Discord to a Patreon thing. I know I mentioned in the last video I set up a Discord. I've moved that over to Patreon. But I am going to be posting some behind the scenes and upcoming things there that's available at all levels. And then as you go up, there's going to be things like the Discord. And I think I'm going to do a monthly live stream for VIP members on there if we get enough people to make that worthwhile. I think it'd be cool to do a live stream with a small group of people versus what I put on this channel in the future. Just something to think about. So if you want to support the channel, get more reviews, more project videos, everything from Patreon is going to go back into the channel, whether that be materials for projects, tools to review, or other equipment to make my recording better for you guys. That's what the Patreon money is all going to go towards. So check that out if you want. If you do end up supporting the channel through Patreon, I appreciate it very much, and just know that it will go back into videos for this channel and other things around the garage hobbyist community.